Oh, hello. Most of you are here expecting World War II content, but we would not be one of the most comprehensive documentary channels on YouTube if we did not try to cover as much history as possible between the years 1939 and, spoiler, 1945. So here it is, the story of the 1941 war that has nothing to do with World War II. Welcome to a World War II in real-time special episode about the Ecuadorian Peruvian War, which has nothing to do with World War II, and I've decided that this format is now called Nothing to Do with World War II. I'm Indy Neidell. The Ecuadorian Peruvian War, known locally as La Guerra del 41, has roots dating all the way back to the independence period that followed the days of the Spanish Empire. To make a long story short, in 1828, newly independent Peru has a war with newly independent Gran Colombia, which is what historians call the Colombian superstate encompassing much of modern-day Ecuador, Panama, Venezuela, and Colombia. Peru wants to expel the Colombian army from Bolivia, a state that has been under Colombian influence since its foundation. Simultaneously, a war would also allow the fledgling states to settle a border dispute regarding the territories of Tumbes, Jaén, Maynas, and Guayaquil. The war quickly becomes a stalemate, and the belligerents agree to accept the status quo of the original borders of the Spanish viceroyalties in the Treaty of Guayaquil in 1829. But then the next year, Ecuador gains its independence from Gran Colombia, leading Peru to declare the treaty void and move to claim much of the contested lands. This leaves Ecuador with virtually none of the land it had when it gained independence, and it spends a century trying to get this back. Multiple attempts are made at some final treaty to solve the issue, but nothing seems to stick. The closest thing to a settlement comes in 1936, when the two countries signed the Ulloa-Viterria Accord. But Ecuador isn't really that happy about this new status quo. It simply formalizes the de facto situation, a Peruvian occupation of these territories. So despite the intentions of the treaty, tensions continue. Ecuador begins sending small military detachments to set up outposts in the disputed frontiers, often leading to skirmishes. Most are pretty minor, but in May 1940, there is a significant clash at Lagartococha in the Peruvian border town of Loreto to probe the Ecuadorian response. Peru even violates Ecuadorian airspace, sending in reconnaissance aircraft. This is certainly a wake-up call for Ecuadorian Foreign Minister Julio Tobar Donoso, who diffuses the situation slightly in October by proposing a joint mapping commission to settle the dispute. But this, predictably, ends up with commissioners from both sides trading barbs and advocating only their own interests. The commission falls apart in December, but Tobar Donoso continues looking for a diplomatic solution. He knows that Ecuador would not be able to win a war head-on with Peru. See, he's been watching events play out in Europe. In his opinion, France was defeated by Germany because it had gone to war before its military was ready. And he knows that Ecuador is in the same sort of situation. Its military is dwarfed by Peru's much more modernized force, which boasts tanks, artillery, engineers, and a budget 12 times that of Ecuador's. His objective is to avoid war by making it diplomatically undesirable for Peru to declare one. He issues loud international circulars promising Ecuadorian willingness to negotiate, provided Peru acts in good faith. But this actually just offends Peru, whose own foreign minister, Alfredo Solfimuro, replies that Peru has consistently shown its willingness to negotiate, and that it is Ecuador who's acting in bad faith. Meanwhile, troops have been building up along the 1936 borderline. Now, not long after the Joint Mapping Commission fails in December 1940, Peruvian President Manuel Prado Ugarteche approves the creation of the Agrupamiento del Norte, Northern Army Detachment. By March 1941, it consists of multiple infantry divisions, cavalry squadrons, artillery groups, and a tank detachment. But Tobar Donoso is still gambling that Peru will not risk the diplomatic crisis that would come with all-out war. He hopes that while the United States remains neutral in World War II, their focus on events in South America should keep Peru from doing anything drastic. He's not entirely wrong. America has noticed the military buildup and steps in May 1941, along with Argentina and Brazil, offering to mediate the border dispute. Tovar Donoso jumps at the opportunity, but Peru is by now unwilling to cooperate. Solfimuro issues a new international circular that points out that Peru has resolved its territorial disputes with all of its other neighbors, and it is Ecuador's unstable domestic situation, her infringement of the status quo, and her provocation of incidents that is impeding a peaceful solution. War between Ecuador and Peru seems only a step away. The catalyst comes July 5th, 1941. The exact circumstances are a bit vague, and we don't really know which side played the aggressor, but we do know that things start off as a minor border skirmish between two enemy patrols on the outskirts of Huaquillas, an Ecuadorian town on the Zarumilla River. This escalates into a much bigger battle, with Ecuadorian forces pushing into the Peruvian town of Aguas Verdes. They do retreat, but not until after fighting has spread across the whole region. By the 6th, the Peruvian Air Force is conducting airstrikes on Ecuadorian border towns. Tovar Donoso was correct in his assessment. Ecuador is not ready for this fight. The numbers vary according to different sources, but Peru commits at least 3 times as many men as Ecuador, and there are sources that speculate it might be closer to 10 times as many. Ecuador also doesn't really have any equipment beyond a few repurposed civilian trucks, which lack the fuel to keep running anyway, and some 19th century artillery pieces. This gives Peru the ability to win decisive engagements. One such victory is the Battle of Zarumilla on July 23rd. In the hours before dawn, a light infantry division of the Northern Detachment attacks Noblecilla, an island on the Zarumilla. The Ecuadorian counterattack does initially push the Peruvians back, but that soon crumbles in the face of a renewed offensive. The Ecuadorian lines break and panicked soldiers flee into the bush as Peruvian forces push past the disputed territory and into Ecuador itself in the El Oro province. On the 24th, the Ecuadorian government issues a mobilization decree calling up all men aged 20 to 30, but it is too late. The country is in a state of collapse. On the 26th, a ceasefire is brokered in Washington, but Peru soon breaks it on the 28th with aerial attacks on towns in El Oro province and a naval bombardment of Puerto Bolivar. Ecuador is forced to accept total defeat and on the 31st accedes to Peru's demands to cancel the mobilization decree. Peru launches a final offensive for good measure that afternoon, sending airborne soldiers to seize the towns of Santa Rosa and Machala, the first time paratroopers are used in South American history. Meanwhile, ground troops enter and occupy the town of Aranillas. A new ceasefire is declared, and assuming it's all over, American President Franklin Roosevelt cables both countries' leaders on August 1st to congratulate them on achieving peace. But Peru breaks the ceasefire again almost immediately and opens a new campaign in Ecuador's Oriente region, taking swaths of new territory throughout August. Ecuador can offer virtually no resistance, and its military has all but disintegrated. It's at this point that the US, Brazil, and Argentina step in and demand an end to hostilities. Things do calm down, but sporadic fighting continues until October 2nd, when the Talara Convention establishes an internationally mediated buffer zone between the two countries. The following negotiations in the new year are a dismal affair for Ecuador. Diplomats desperately try to get something out of the proceedings, but Peru will not budge and refuses to withdraw any of its forces until Ecuador unconditionally accepts a return to the 1936 borders. America is by this time actively involved in World War II, and so sees Ecuador's plight as little more than a distracting annoyance. Finally, the two countries signed the Protocol of Peace, Friendship, and Boundaries between Peru and Ecuador in Rio de Janeiro on January 29th. Ecuador is forced to cede its territorial claims and accept the 1936 border markings. In return, Peru withdraws its forces. So, that is the Ecuadorian Peruvian War. It's been a pretty embarrassing affair for Ecuador, and a big hit to national Ecuadorian pride. Peru ran roughshod over Ecuadorian territory and refused to entertain any territorial concessions, while Ecuador found few friends in an increasingly disinterested international audience. But the dispute is not yet over. More wars will come throughout the rest of the 20th century, and things won't be settled until 1998, when the two countries finally sign a definite peace agreement. So that's it for Nothing to Do with World War II. If you want to know more, though, about another war that is more related to World War II, you can check out the Sabaton History episode about their song Talvisota, where I talk about the Winter War right here. And join the Time Ghost Army so we can make more of these specials. This was kind of a fun one, I think, yeah? Yeah. Okay, you can join the army at timeghost.tv or patreon.com. Do not forget to subscribe. See you next time.